Tonight, barreling towards Florida, Hurricane Ian gathering strength as the massive storm takes aim at the Sunshine State's west coast.
We have about 2.5 million Floridians that are currently under some type of an evacuation order.
Our CBN News team is on the ground as the Gulf Coast braces for a Category 4 hurricane.
We are flirting on the edge of the possibility of a Category 5 hurricane.
The slow-moving path of destruction comes in the wake of Hurricane Fiona.
Most of the people were not prepared.
The island of Puerto Rico left ravaged. All this and more on Faith Nation. All eyes on Ian, tracking the storm. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Abigail Robertson. Tonight, Hurricane Ian crashed ashore as expected as a near Category 5 storm and now enters a destructive phase. The hurricane made landfall along Florida's Gulf Coast, bringing along catastrophic winds and potentially fatal storm surges. Our CBN News team is staying on top of the storm with CBN's Brody Carter on the ground in Florida and Matt Galka tackling the storm from here in Washington. Matt, let's start with you.
Well, Abigail, Floridians and many emergency responders are now in wait-and-see mode as this slow-moving and powerful hurricane makes its way through the state. Many are preparing for the worst now that the storm has made landfall. Hurricane Ian entered a destructive phase Wednesday. The near Category 5 hurricane made landfall along the state's Gulf Coast, bringing along catastrophic winds and potentially fatal storm surge.
Pray for people. This is a major storm. You never want to see any storms hit because it creates a lot of problems.
Governor Ron DeSantis says 40,000 linemen are already in the state preparing for widespread power outages. He predicts millions could be without power. President Joe Biden pleaded with Floridians to take the potential impacts of the hurricane seriously.
The storm is incredibly dangerous, to state the obvious. It's life-threatening. You should obey all warnings and directions from emergency officials. Don't take anything for granted. Use their judgment, not yours. Evacuate when ordered. Be prepared. The storm warnings are real. The evacuation notices are real. The danger is real. And when the storm passes, the federal government's going to be there to help you recover.
Biden says he and DeSantis have been in constant contact as federal resources will be needed to help people in the storm's path. FEMA teams and National Guard members have already been rushed to the area. Search and rescue will be a top priority for Ian's immediate aftermath, as well as providing for people in disaster zones.
We have 3.7 million meals and 3.5 million liters of water staged in Alabama. And there are multiple volunteer agencies that are staged and prepared to perform feeding operations as soon as it is safe to do so.
While Florida is no stranger to hurricanes, Ian brings a new level of danger and potential destruction. Experts say multiple areas of the state are likely to face never-before-seen flooding, leaving billions of dollars in damage. Jared Moskowitz is the former director of Florida's emergency management under DeSantis. He helped the state recover after Category 5 Hurricane Michael hit the Panhandle in 2018.
We unfortunately are going to see people lose their lives in this storm, just like we did in Hurricane Michael in the Panhandle for the folks that decided to ride that out. And so right now, that's my biggest concern is the loss of life, those families. There will be some areas that are affected by this storm that may not have power for a month. It took a month to get power back to some areas of the Panhandle. I think that they're going to have similar challenges if the grid suffers catastrophic loss.
During the brunt of the storm, many emergency personnel are unable to provide help to those who chose to stay and ride out the storm. It's one of the toughest things first responders have to deal with when storms move through. Sometimes they just have to wait and hope for the best until it's safe to start search and rescue. Abigail?
Thanks for that report, Matt. And now let's go to our CBN News correspondent, Brody Carter, who is on the ground in Florida. Brody, I believe you're in Orlando right now. Earlier today, you were in Tampa Bay. Tell us, what are you seeing down there?
Well, right now I'm seeing the cutest dog in the world. This is little Nugget. A lot of families have been displaced. Nugget is from Sarasota. And Mom and Nugget actually came down here in Orlando hoping to seek some safety as Hurricane Ian is barreling towards us. I'm going to actually give Nugget back to you because the other thing that everybody is looking towards is the sky. Obviously, everybody is looking towards those ominous-looking clouds. There is rain that is falling left and right, and it's so strange. It comes in waves. I mean, at one moment it'll be bone dry, and then the next it'll be coming down in buckets. And obviously in the back of everybody's heads is the devastation that we've seen on the West Coast. And that's kind of something that people are thinking about as this storm inches closer. 8 a.m. is when Hurricane Ian is expected to be on top of Orlando. So a lot of issues are going to be coming alongside with that, but it's probably why we're seeing shelves that are emptied. Food, fuel, and water very hard to come by. And also these hotels that we're staying at here in Orlando booked solid, mainly from people who are seeking refuge from the heaviest hit areas from this hurricane.
Well, Brody, I'm glad Nugget did not leave home without his rain gear. But can you tell us, have you seen the storm intensify throughout the day?
Oh, most certainly. Right now it has intensified probably twofold, almost three, and with regards to the wind and the rain. The thunder is starting to make its way in here, but when we're talking about that storm hitting landfall at 140 miles an hour, it's not just the wind and the waves. It's the storm surge upwards of 12 feet. We're talking plus 15 inches of rain that have dropped down. Excessive rain causing flood concerns, flash flooding issues, tornadoes possibly spread throughout the entire state as we're now in the face of a hurricane that is going to be moving back into the Atlantic that could re-intensify and then damage the East Coast and make its way over to South Carolina as well. So, yeah, it slowed down in intensity, but it's caused a world of problems.
Yeah. Brody, we have about 30 seconds left. Tell us, do you still have power where you are, and how are you staying safe in this storm?
Yeah. So thankful I have power, most definitely. More than 600,000 people are without power in the state of Florida, and we're being told to hunker down, stay away from windows, and to expect anything that can happen. You know, worst case scenarios, I've got my rain boots on, and I can always sleep in the bathtub. So hopefully it doesn't come to that, but if it does, we'll be prepared. Abigail?
Well, thank you, Brody. Stay safe, and God bless you and your work down there.
Thanks, Abigail.
Well, now we're going to turn to Dan Kotlowski, a hurricane expert with AccuWeather. Dan, thank you so much for joining us on this busy day. And I just want to start by asking you, some 2.5 million Floridians are under evacuation orders right now. If people haven't fled the storm yet, is it too late? And what should they be doing if they are in this storm now?
Yeah, especially like in the Fort Myers area, Tampa, and areas just east and northeast of there, you're not going to be able to get out. So you just basically have to stay where you're at. And hopefully you have a hurricane plan in place and you have plenty of supplies. The biggest issue for places further inland is going to be heavy rainfall. There will be some damaging winds from the storm, which will be weakening. This, by the way, hit as a Category 4 hurricane. The official Hurricane Center winds was 150, but as was reported, it almost became a Cat 5 this morning, but it did weaken slightly. But in a storm like this, of this magnitude, it doesn't matter of it weakening. It's still going to cause the rain, the wind, and the big surge. But people that have not gotten out of harm's way should stay where they're at and hope for the best. The thing is, emergency management people don't want to be going out onto the road and trying to get people rescued that are trying to get away from the storm now. So your best bet is just to stay where you're at and then let the storm go by. Be very careful when you step out because there's going to be down trees, there's going to be power lines down. And so that's always a problem. Now, this storm is going to go just south and southeast of Orlando tomorrow. So it's going to have a path of destruction all the way through there. And then just to the north of its path is where the heaviest rain is going to occur, which would be the Tampa area, the Orlando area, and all the way up to Jacksonville, Florida. And so that area, that corridor, could experience anywhere from maybe as much as 10 to 15 inches. Some localized areas could have anywhere from 20 to maybe 30 inches of rain from this when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and as you just pointed out, this hurricane was just shy of a Category 5, being a Category 5. What are some of these cities on the direct path of this storm going to look like in the next 48 hours?
Well, I think the biggest issue is going to be heavy rainfall. There no doubt will be some wind damage. And the problem is when it rains real hard like this, it loosens the soil. And these big oak trees that we have, like in around Orlando and elsewhere, may come tumbling down. So people should be aware of the fact that if you live in a home or you're near one of these big tall trees, it may come down on your house. So that's something to look at. But basically, we're just going to see a lot of heavy rainfall. In the East Coast, there is going to be some storm surge. In a place like Jacksonville, another interesting situation, there's going to be roughly 15 to 20 inches of rain. It falls south of Jacksonville, which will dump into what is called the St. Johns River. And then there's going to be a storm surge of about 3 to 5 feet coming in from the east into that river. And this is what happened with Irma. And this could cause a major flooding problem. I think with Irma, there was like 4 feet of water in Jacksonville. So that could be a big issue. But in Orlando and Melbourne, let's say those two cities, I think heavy rainfall, possibility of damaging winds from the hurricane. And the further south and east you are away from the storm, also have to worry about the possibility of isolated tornadoes. Now, the Palm Beach area, Palm Beaches and all the way down to Miami, they're seeing some heavy rainfall. They're seeing some gusty winds. They're under tropical storm warnings right now and some storm surge. But basically, they will not see nearly the problems that others will see to the north and northwest.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for your insight. And I'm just praying for all in the storm's path.
Okay, thank you.
Well, joining us now is Alan Moats, deployment technician with CBN's Operation Blessing in Ocala, Florida, just north of Tampa. Alan, thank you for coming on Faith Nation tonight. And I just want to start by asking, how is Operation Blessing preparing to respond to this catastrophic storm?
Hi, thank you, Abby. Right now we're preparing by putting together some pallets of buckets for cleaning. We have plenty of pallets of water also for distribution. And then we have pallets of tarps, all those included in the trucks that we'll be sending out, as we see the aftermath of this storm.
Mm-hmm. And what is the worst case scenario you all are bracing for as this hurricane makes landfall on the Florida coast?
Well, we're really just trying to see how things are going right now, but what we're going to do is stage in the correct area as we see the storm come through. We're waiting on what's happening, and then we'll stage in an area to where we can meet the most need for the folks and obviously put together distributions of the water, the buckets, and the tarps.
Mm-hmm. And I know that already millions of people are expected to be without power. How are you all preparing to respond to the people affected by these power outages?
Our construction trailers that we have are equipped with a lot of tools, and the main tool would be chainsaws. We have plenty of chainsaws and plenty of people who know how to operate those chainsaws. So in the case that we need to do any downed trees, anything of that nature, we're prepared to help, and obviously we use a lot of volunteers for that help.
Mm-hmm. And we have just about 30 seconds left, but what about access to clean drinking water? Is that going to be a concern in the aftermath of this storm?
It would probably be a concern as things unfold. However, we do have pallets and pallets of drinking water to distribute to folks, if they need to come and get those from us when we're able to distribute them.
Yes. Well, thank you for joining us. God bless you and the work you all are doing there.
Thank you, Abby.
Well, our CBN News and Operation Blessing teams are on the scene as Hurricane Ian descends on Florida. To stay up to date on the storm, tune into the CBN News Channel and app, as well as tomorrow's 700 Club for continued coverage. And even as Ian strikes Florida, Operation Blessing is still assisting in the recovery from Hurricane Fiona in Puerto Rico. Coming up, how you too can help. As Operation Blessing is gearing up to respond in Florida, we remain on the ground in Puerto Rico, serving the victims of Hurricane Fiona. We're delivering food and essential supplies and providing hot meals for those in need, all thanks to you.
When Hurricane Fiona tore through the island of Puerto Rico, high-speed winds and catastrophic flooding damaged homes and left thousands without power or food.
Most of the people were not prepared because they said, oh, it's not something that is going to be so big.
Lilian Doval Estepa is the director of a nonprofit help center in Puerto Nuevo. Since the storm, she and her team have been working tirelessly to help people in their hard-hit community. They're serving hundreds of meals every day.
So the people here, they can cook because they don't have no water and they don't have no energy. Before Operation Blessing came, we were asking donations and going almost house by house, asking people to donate.
Thanks to the support of Operation Blessing partners, the center was equipped with ample groceries, cleaning supplies, and other essentials that are keeping them in full operation.
We were trying, we didn't have enough food when you came, so we have now food. Operation Blessing is a huge blessing. All this that you bring us is really, really important because we can impact more people.
Because of our generous partners, families here have access to hot meals while they recover from the storm.
It's the most you can do because when you feed a person, you give love, you give that person feels the love. I will send you a lot of blessings and pray to God to bless you more. Bless everybody that helps you.
Well, to help with Operation Blessing's disaster team and its relief work in Puerto Rico and now in Florida, please consider giving to the Relief Fund. You can do so by calling 1-800-700-7000 or text OB Crisis to 71777. For more information, you can check out the CBN website, cbn.com, or the Operation Blessing website at ob.org. Well, coming up, the war in Ukraine has Russia's neighbors on edge, why some are gearing up for conflict when we come back. Welcome back. As the war in Ukraine rages on, new threats from Russia have neighboring countries gearing up for conflict. Vladimir Putin's announcement that Russia will proceed with the mobilization of 300,000 troops to offset losses in Ukraine has caused real upheaval along bordering countries. Chuck Holton reports that Baltic countries are putting their forces on high alert.
Cars line up for miles at the border crossing between Russia and Finland. That's because this Nordic country is one of the few places left that will allow Russians to enter. 3 Baltic states bordering Russia, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, recently decided not to offer refuge to citizens of Russia, given Putin's announcement. That change caused protests across Russia, as thousands of young men want to leave the country to avoid the war. That leaves Finland as one of the only places to go. Opposition to the war is rising across Russia, even though protesters risk 15-year jail terms or worse, being sent to the front lines. 21-year-old Zach left in March.
The war started. I went to the protest 24th of February. At one point, 6 policemen were chasing me, and then I just left Russia in a week. And since recent events, I'm so happy I left.
That move isn't only a cause for concern among Russian men. Many of Russia's neighbors are preparing for a possible escalation of the conflict. Similar drills have been ongoing in Finland across the Baltic Sea.
As it stands right now, Finland's military is tiny. As a matter of fact, their whole army could fit in the Olympic Stadium here in Helsinki, about 25,000 men. However, if they go to war, their constitution says that national defense is the responsibility of every citizen. So they could very quickly scale up to 250,000 with a reserve of almost 900,000 men. That makes them a formidable force against any Russian aggression.
People are now more worried than a couple of years ago. We will actively keep the option, and that will be, of course, our own decision to adjust the relationship to NATO, but most probably we will continue like this. And for us, this cooperation partnership is very important. We've been the partners with NATO already since 90s, and also been very active with different operations in Balkans and the last years in Afghanistan, and now we are preparing to participate also other operations. So there is a long history of developing the interoperability and doing the cooperation with NATO.
Finland's military has a strong reputation for fighting off Russian aggression. Its 800-mile border with Russia is only second to that shared by Ukraine. The July decision to allow Finland and Sweden into NATO is just one more reason the war is not going the way Putin intended when he decided to invade. Experts say it's unlikely Russia will attack another country considering the poor showing in Ukraine. But these neighbor states aren't taking any chances, and the decision to limit access to everyday Russians is bringing the war home in a very tangible way.
In fact, this is very sad, because the more our Russian people go abroad, the more they will learn about Europe and European values. They should not ban entry to the EU to anyone. Quite the opposite. They should invite everyone.
Of course, I'm worried, and my friends are too. I think no one, a sane person, wants to go to war. Like any sane person in Russia, we strongly oppose this.
From Helsinki, Finland, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
When we come back, the sight and sound of revival in schools across America. More on this next. Finally tonight, a nationwide moment of prayer. Today, students gathered at sunrise around their school's flagpoles to pray. The national initiative, called See You at the Pole, encourages students from elementary school to college to pray for one another and the world. This year's theme is aflame, motivating students to be on fire for Christ. And some did that through praise and worship.
Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing, great are you, Lord.
And thousands more gathered to lift up their friends, school, country, and world. The initiative is part of the Global Student Week of Prayer, and it hopes to inspire unity in Christ. Well, that's going to do it for tonight's Faith Nation. We'll see you tomorrow.